Now let's get back home, where the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has decided to hold all its policy parameters unchanged, despite the country's inflation moderating at 22.2% last month, and the rebased GDP data showing the size of the economy is bigger and grew at 3.13% in the first quarter ended March. Let's dive into this twin macro and monetary developments with my guest in the Abuja studios. Professor Ken Ife is a development economist and a public policy analyst. It's good to see you again, Professor. We thank you for coming in on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again. Thank you for making the time. Let's tee off this. What do you make of the rebased GDP data?
It's very necessary to do that. It has to be done every 5 years. We have always been lagging, always. We did in 2014, but the base year was 10 years, was 2010. And what we got was it increased by 59%. Now, we now did this one, but we chose it 2019 because that is the least turbulent year before 2020. 2020 was COVID, so we chose 2029. And then with figures we are returning, was showed about 41% increase. Okay, that's fine. But the thing is that we need to be doing this regularly every 5 years because even the industry, the ISIC, which is the industry standard, the international standard industry classification, changes over time because of the influence of innovation and technological changes, which also affect the patterns of expenditure and patterns of investment and all of business. So they change. And they're trying to apply that showed that some major activities were missing. For example, if you look at some digital sectors, and you know a lot of fintech and edtech, and all of them are in now. And then you also have transportation, where we couldn't get inland transportation, NPA, Post Authority, NEMASA, all of these. So some of those are now came in. And you also have the pension fund, huge, almost 20 trillion now. Pension fund, and then you have the NSITF, the National Insurance Trust Fund. A lot of these activities, even when you come to the informal, there was a bigger, there's a push from 41 to 43%. So that is, they all captured all of that. And you can even see one distortion when you look at construction. Suddenly the construction has increased threefold. And this is because some other, the personal side of construction and all that were not being picked. So now, we now have a broader definition and classification that meets industry standards. So that is good. But is it anything that should worry the monetary authorities to tinker with our area? I don't think so. I don't think so. But it does say something that we may have to talk about.
Broadly speaking, is the rebased GDP in line with your expectations, Professor Ken, in terms of the size of the economy and how the various sectors now align or stacked up in the new data?
Yeah, it doesn't. There's nothing there that surprised me because I expected all of that to happen. But what I found very disturbing, and I have to tell you this, very, very disturbing is the performance of our agricultural sector. I cannot believe that we will have a complete meltdown in agricultural growth rate to 0.07. You might as well call it zero. And yet, this is a country that is increasing, population is increasing by 2.8 to 3% every year. Urbanization is 4.6%. This is a complete meltdown. I think we have to take this whole food security and nutrition extremely seriously and make sense of this emergency classification, which is just not on. I tell you, other ones are manageable. We've seen that the growth has continued to be driven by the service sector and also, in a large part, non-oil sector. Oil sector is still fighting. They are giving us some 5.17 growth rate. There was a time when the growth rates were negative. Most times they were negative. But now, because of the new targets to go to 2 million barrels per day and then all that, so it is growing. But I hope it will do better than it's doing at the moment.
I'm really surprised that you were surprised, Professor, that agriculture has tanked, as it were, and we're now hitting the bottom of the barrel, considering the spate of insurgency, criminal enterprise around the country's middle belts and all of that in the northern part of the country, and also a little bit of disquiet, as it were, in some other parts of the country when it comes to sit at home or whatsoever, to traders and farmers. Folks can't go to farm on Mondays because some folks says they shouldn't go out. So this is the wages of sin, isn't it?
Yeah, but we could do more because the whole thing is on mechanization. Because after all, why is 4% of America to do with agriculture, and our own 21 is about 25%? So we have to deploy more. And then even in the areas where they are not affected by insurgency, we could still do more. We can even till the lands. We can do more land clearing, bring more lands into cultivation. We can deploy more resources. But it's just not happening. And I have to tell you that one thing that disappoints me about the budgeting framework is that I could not understand why they will go for $75 benchmark when we have predicted that the price, even the American energies, predicted that the price is going to hover around 60, 65 for the next 3 years. And what that means is like a conspiracy, because you push these prices up, push the benchmark up, denying any headroom that will have accretion to reserves and accretion to excess crude account. In the end of the day, pumping up this price means you will do all the necessary ones, which is salaries, debt service, all of that, and who suffers the capital expenditure doesn't get a look in. And that's why nothing has been dropped for the 2025 budget. We push 2024 down to December. It is because the budget framework is unrealistic. And it shouldn't continue. You have to have a realistic budget so that every player has a chance. Now, all the current expenditures, you get 100%, but the capital expenditures get kicked back to the first rung of the ladder. We need to be a bit more realistic on this. And then I'm also surprised about the industry. Now, look at agriculture, posting 25% contribution to GDP.
Yes.
And industry, 21%. Where is it? This is unheard of. After all, industry needs to sit comfortably above agriculture, because after all, the agriculture should give you raw material for industry.
Correct.
But then it's not just about agriculture. Industry is not just about agriculture. It also involves solid minerals. It involves gas. So it should be punching at about 35%. If agriculture is 25%, industry should be about 35%. But that is not what we're seeing. We have to fundamentally rejig this our economy, because it will still continue to be import dependent. And that means that we are still not extremely serious about this whole thing about adding value to what God has given you.
Professor,
and challenge the import dependence.
I'm as worried as you are when we talk about these twin sectors, agriculture and industries. They are like two sides of the same coin in an economy that really takes everything serious. Because you can have manufacturing industrial if you're not strong in agriculture as well, or agro-allied, whatever it is. So they are like Siamese twins joined at the hips, in a manner of speaking. What else can we do that it looks like each time we have the conversations such as this, we keep going back to industrial manufacturing? We've done well in cement, we've done well in a few other top-end manufacturing in terms of all of that. But when it comes to getting our industrial base up and running and using agriculture as a feedstock, even if we start with that, why is that becoming nearly impossible for us to achieve? Is there any idea, anything, any rabbit out of your heart?
No, part of the challenge, is some of the litany of woes that we have mentioned. That we're not having enough investment in agriculture, we have no mechanization, intensity is so low, about the lowest, and that we should have more special hybrids of crops, and then we should farm more land, actually bring more land into cultivation, and then bring technology as much as possible. Yeah, but we keep saying those. And then we saw the government graciously put over 2 million bags of fertilizer, but there is, the issue is, to what extent can you encourage the private sector to do PPP in agriculture? And then, make sure, if you ask subsequent ministers, previous ministers of agriculture, what is their greatest challenge? You know what they're going to tell you? Their greatest challenge is that all that handouts they are giving to agriculture, can they actually get them to hit the ground, the last mile? That is their greatest challenge. So unless you bring private sector people, okay, if you take cassava, for example, where we are doing all kind of PPP there, if cassava, we are number one in the world, producing 64 million metric tons, but only 10% of this is available for industrial raw material. 90% is presumed to have been consumed. And then out of that 90%, 40% are post-harvest losses. That hasn't told you that private sector is being allowed or enabled to deliver in that sector. So go and look at what is going on. You will find who is frustrating who. You got to look at which ministers are frustrated. I know the Minister for Agriculture is doing a great job, but he needs the resources. We just need the resources to change the game in agriculture.
So the rebasing, Professor, shows the economy is about $243 billion at the end of last year. We're still ranking number 4 in Africa. What's your take on that?
Well, it provokes two debates. One is the idea of $1 trillion economy. Now, let me tell you something. There are two perspectives to this. Nigeria is already a $1 trillion economy because our purchasing power, GDP purchasing power parity is $1.28 trillion. Now, that is a notional value of dollar that gives you a clear idea of the capacity and the size of an economy. But there is an issue about the second bit where we try to have the nominal GDPs computed using a deflator. Now, that deflator is your exchange rate. Now, let me explain to you. If the current GDP is saying is a $243 billion, that is so because what it is, the trillion, 272 trillion, you have to divide it by 1.530, 1,530 naira to a dollar.
Yes.
But if you were to move back to what it was in 2023, $500 naira to a dollar, it is now, the denominator will now be threefold less. Instead of 243 billion, it will become $720 billion a GDP. So look at that. Look at Ghana. Ghana has impounded their gold, and Ghana's this has gone up.
We're just moving around.
So look at what we could do.
Aren't you just moving the figures around, Professor? Aren't you just moving the figures around? Ask anyone in real terms on the street, is this economy bigger than 243 billion US dollars? In terms of our productivity and our competitiveness, we're just talking about agriculture, agro-allied, and industrial manufacturing. You just said so yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But we can do more. But so what I'm trying to say is, on a normal day, you are going to say, well, if we are going to go from $243 billion to $1 trillion,
yes,
you have to have a growth rate of about 25 to 30% growth rate. But that is only one side of the story. I'm just telling you what the effect would be. If, for example, we're able to improve our exchange rate to move from 1,500 to 500 naira to a dollar, which it was in 2023,
yeah,
this GDP you are looking at that is 243 billion will become 720 billion.
So, okay,
and then 8% or
so we're going to walk back.
Growth rate.
So you think we can walk back from 1,500 where we are right now? You think we can walk our way back to 500 naira? Of course. To the dollar?
Yeah, Ghana has walked back by 50% on their cedis.
Yes.
Ghana has walked back.
But again,
and I tell you what,
yes,
you look at all the solid minerals we are producing,
yes,
look at all the gold and lithium, all
yes,
of them in Zamfara state, and all, if these solid minerals enter into the equation, if we use our 33 trillion
yes,
ways and means to buy those gold and yes, get them into our foreign reserve, we will not be talking about.
But of course, there was an attempt for the central bank. There was an attempt by the central bank to start buying gold a couple of years ago. Now Ghana says bring everything here. So you got to buy gold. So the central bank started then. So we need to continue that, to buy gold and hold the reserves here and not send it abroad.
We need to continue that. And lithium yes, will give you and lithium will even give you more. So those things will push, they will back the currency. Especially, and now we are now in sync with the BRICS nations that have already prioritized gold and other solid minerals as their standard. They're walking away from dollar, newspaper back. Then, of course, there is the other side. If we were not spending all our money importing crude and refined products, we wouldn't have. If we had spent our money refining them here and selling refined product, we would have been earning a lot more dollars than we are earning at the moment. And now, look at this opportunity you have. For the last 3 years, our money has been devalued by almost 300%. We still have not been exporting enough. And this is the opportunity to export because all your goods are so cheap. Last year, I was in ECOWAS mission to Cotonou. I couldn't even buy anything because the prices are 3 times higher than it used to be. The one naira was buying 3 francs CFA 10 years ago. Now, 1 naira couldn't even buy me 0.7. Hotel bills look 3 times more. I went to Abidjan, all these countries, they're all 3 times. The money is collapsed, so you can see the difference.
So when you look at what you mentioned, you mentioned Ghana, Professor, and I love what you're saying because since President Dr. John Mahama took office, I think just about a week ago, he just suspended petrol or fuel allocation and allotment to all political appointees of the government. He says, look, you've got to go to the petrol station, pay for your own fuel. We're not giving free fuel any longer in your cars. You own the car, you fuel it yourself. Then, of course, he came in and disclosed the entire economy and said, look, we've got a whole lot of work to do. He rejigged the ministries and the MDAs and tried to make it slimmer. So do you think this is some of the hard work that we haven't really done, even though we've moved the 2 pillars, as it were, which everybody has said we've done well?
No,
the exchange rate.
I agree.
Yes.
Look, you cannot deny this president the capacity to make those changes because he has the political will, he has the sagacity, he has everything that it takes. What we are saying to him, if you know the miracle you did in removing fuel subsidy, except that NNPC trapped 50% of that, and he never got more than 50% to give the large chunk to governors and then very small. If he had all that money, it would have been a different story. All of them went into the inefficiency of NNPC operations. And then $3.5 billion they spent 3 years repairing refineries that couldn't produce any PMS. So we've had enough of all those, and then let us unlock liquidity from the JV assets of NNPC. And then that's why I kept saying, go to the capital market, because capital market is where you are forced. You are forced to play to the guys. But that's not happening. But I know it will. But it's time is taking so much time. Now, the point you were making about the strong measures being taken by Mahama, yes, we can be taken here.
Yes.
Without a doubt. The president can do all that, and he has the political. But the thing is this, is he being enabled to do this? Is he being told what needs to be done? I'll give you one example.
Yes.
Why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars, naira, fighting corruption when we have an enabling law, fiscal responsibility at 2000, that stops any civil servant or public servant from touching 1 naira of federal government money? It stops them, but they will implement that because you don't have any penalties or you don't have any imprisonment terms or nothing. It's just there. You commit the offense, nobody does anything. You write letters you write report to the Attorney General's office, and then whether he likes. That is what it is going. That is what the Revenue Mobilization Law that has been amended 2025 is positive. But the one that we are asking for is the Fiscal Law 2007.
You mean
because that is the one that will stop all these things going on.
So we have a structure that makes noise that backs but cannot bite. So we have a toothless structure.
Yes. And I tell you why.
Yes.
When Ngozi, we have it. We have the second most important law apart from Brazil, because we copied from Brazil. Now, when this law was proposed to be adopted in 2007, they watered it down. So many things were watered down. One of them is these things I've mentioned to you. Penalties and levies,
convictions and all of that, yes.
They removed those. Convictions and all of that. And if you see the amendment that has been suggested for over 4 years now, in the Senate, those amendments saying if you touch the money, you will go to jail for 1 year, and then you pay a fine of 1 million, and it is both, not or.
Oh, really?
And when 3 civil servants go to jail over this, they will run away from government money. I'm telling you.
Okay.
Because that's the big problem that you have.
Okay, so much about that. But let's just talk about, were you surprised that the Monetary Policy Committee decided today to hold interest rates despite inflation rebasing and, GDP rebasing and inflation also, which was recalibrated earlier, trending low at about 22.2%. Were you surprised that the central bank says, hold on a second, we're not moving the needle yet?
over the last 1 week, I have been urging central bank not to be distracted, not to be intimidated, not to be hounded into having to mess with the rates. And I said, if you are minded to alter the rates, just change the asymmetric corridor. Just leave those rates there. Because there's no room for optimism. I haven't seen anything in the rebasing of the economy that will prompt them to do what a lot of people were asking them to do. There was no point hounding the central bank to reduce the rates. Why would you do that? The macroeconomic headwinds are dangerously staring at our face, as you could see. The oil prices are not where we're supposed to be. The benchmark is far adrift from the reality of the price of the crude. Neither is the government borrowing is intensifying. You've seen $25.15 billion, 15 billion yen. You've seen those in the pipeline coming. All this means more money will be delivered into the system, and that's inflationary. And then we haven't still come out of the securitization of the... So there's no... I can't see why they would be stampeded. Why CBN should be stampeded to temper. Just tinker with the asymmetric corridor. And then if you wanted to do something, look at the banks. Look at the banks, because the banks are now succeeding in their recapitalization. Then if you want to do something for the banks, so that, because they're on tight ropes, 50% CRR, 30% liquidity ratio, already 80%, 80% is gone. So they haven't got enough room for maneuver. And then these are the banks we want to increase their reach to many more international transactions and banks and all that stuff and bring more goodies to Nigeria. So we will be looking at the banks rather than, so that my advice was, so I'm not surprised. I'm actually very happy that they went the way they went.
So how, just to conclude, Professor, in about 1 minute or 30 seconds, how should the central bank decide that it's September and November rate meetings? We have 2 more meetings left in the year.
Well, the time will tell, because we still have to see all the things up to Donald Trump's sleeves. Remember, he's already hitting the bricks. We don't know how that's going to end. And we are not out of the woods yet, because we'll go 14% plus 10%, but he wants to change that to 50%. So we just have to, we are not out of the woods yet.
Okay.
And then, of course, the turbulence in the Middle East is still not abated. And we still don't know where things are going. I think they just have to hold and watch, because what you don't want to do is to push central bank to drop rate, and then tomorrow they will bring it back, and then that makes nonsense of our policy. And then also, of course, remember that the major thing that is giving us the balance is the portfolio investment, foreign portfolio investment.
Yes, that is very sensitive to the rates. The central bank has been able to open up.
You can't eat your cake.
Okay, I guess we got to
eat your cake and have it at the same time.
Yeah, I'll likely want to have a cake sometime soon. It's been quite some time just watching my sugar level, but that's fine. On a lighter note, a very serious discussion. Thank you so much for that deep dive insights, as always, on matters of macroeconomics and more. Professor Kenny, development economist, have a great evening there in Abuja. We appreciate it.